There we go. Wait, it's the other camera.
That's not my camera.
Boom.
Nice.
Okay.
So there's hours of fixing the same issue. Apps can be touch-free, that's the problem. The explanation is we have an extension for Vimeo to record our screen. But then, because they program the apps in a way they are always like monitoring what we're doing, like with what is that again? DLL files, like meta files, hidden files.
So
The
these,
camera was being used by the extension, even though the extension was not being used. So what I did, I went there and I said, like, do not do anything unless I click here. And then now it works.
so these, so I just looked at the email, like I got a Zoom cloud recording 111 and 112. That was just because we just,
Yeah, it started again.
yeah, okay. But the one that from earlier, right?
I was not in Zoom.
You weren't in Zoom. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I already saved the
Okay.
video.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, so we're recording now?
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
okay. All right, so let's get started again. We started and then we realized we weren't recording. So Jillian, Nasreen, one of the things that we were talking about is sort of the lab and equipment and access. And so the computer in the lab is prioritized for Jonah and Quan, who are working, full-time in the lab. So the testing with the headset testing that we were hoping everyone would do this week. If you're not able to do that in the lab at a time when they're working or you can't come in at another time, the best thing I think to do would probably go down to the dev lab in main campus if you don't have a headset. But again, I think what we might be able to do too, depending on what people's equipment, if you have a PC that you can test, we should be able to loan out a headset for testing. If those are, if you have a PC that's robust enough for that.
Another way of organizing that, since they are here full time, it's unlikely that they will be doing overtime after 5. So after 5, the lab, and if Quan is here, he's using his own.
Yeah.
Like
I'm always
Jonah
using
is
my
the
own
one who
computer.
needs to use the MPC.
Okay. So one of the things that we want to do today is we do want to walk through the Lehigh Gap story for all the associates to kind of show how everything works with the photospheres. We had talked about, so Junior, we have to make a decision. Do we want to get into setting up VR headsets also today, or do we want to just stick to, table that or go right to the photosphere?
Did you make the video Tuesday?
I don't have it. I have the video.
A bit of unboxing, but
I have the video of unboxing it,
connecting.
but I have an explanation, very detailed on the doc.
So I asked them on Tuesday when they opened the headset to make a video to share the step by step, like
I have a
how to-
step by step of opening the box and like what to do and like what each part does and how to connect it. But
the setting up of the headset. We are always recommending the process we followed in the VR room tutorial.
Right.
So all the members, they are using that tutorial. So and Jonah has documented in text this morning. So I think this should be apart from the meeting, otherwise it's going to monopolize the time.
All right, fair enough. So why don't we at least show where, so everyone's clear where Jonah's work is for his documentation, just to remind everybody. I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, so in our summer folder in the shared drive, there is a folder for each one of the projects. Jonah, Quan, Nasreen are working in watershed explorers industrial history, and Gloria, Shanyu, and everybody, Jillian, and everybody else that is an associate is going to be working with Lehigh Gap Story VR. Both of you, the groups, have a workload, a daily workload. So you can see that today, Jonah last modified it at almost noon. So this is the place where you should go to see where things are. And Jonah wrote here, how to use MetaQuest Unity project.
There's also outline, if you click the outline button.
Oh, yeah. So it's organized also in outline per day, what to do, or how to use the MetaQuest here. What else? Dr. Boyd?
And that's all. I just want to make sure so that when, especially since Gloria's here and also Jean Yu will be doing this at some point too, that you know where this documentation is to go through. And as Junior mentioned, it's also in the tutorial, in the Unity tutorial for setup.
I think it's module 5, getting VR ready, something like that. I don't remember them. And finally, since the fellows are here like for full time, whenever you have a question about this, you can get in touch with them, right? Because they have done that 2 days ago, and they are actively using 2 headsets already, which is exactly the same that all of you will be doing. So they are the current masters of this skill.
Yeah. How's that sound, Gloria? John, you? It's good. All right, cool. All right, well, let's get under the hood with watershed and with the IGAP story.
So the first thing I'm doing here, I open Plastic to see if there are new changes. It doesn't seem to be the case. Similarly to the Watershed Explorers project, we were branching out to different versions. So I don't think I'm gonna be walking through. Oh, no, I can. So I can walk through this. This is the branch for developing in VR, but if anyone needs ever to go back to a desktop version, which is not the case, all the associates will be focusing on the VR version. It's here. Just to remind everyone, the house icon tells you where your computer is. That's your workspace, your local version. And the last version of the project had these comments like the updates. So the canvases were standardized. We removed unnecessary lighting and shadows. And we updated the blast prompt line in the last scene about the green arrow. So if we go to Unity and open that project, which is not this one, not this one, and I get started here. Unity is going to download everything that was last saved in Plastic. That's how this kind of software works together. And while we are in the downtime of waiting loading times, can we address any other topic, Dr. Watson? Sprint report is due tomorrow, right?
Wait, tomorrow?
At the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Okay.
All of us, because our names are there, we need to go there and transcribe our
Yeah,
time,
really
keep
important.
tracking time into the sprint report because it's the document we use to also like share with Mountaintop for them to see that our group has actively been working, also, the sprint report, and that it's open, right? The sprint report is where we document huge issues, bottlenecks that we need to address or find help.
Did we ever take that first one and make a template?
I did.
You did, okay, great.
After you asked.
Here's kind of what I'm thinking, because I haven't looked at the sprint report, see if everyone's keeping up with it.
No, it's empty.
It's empty.
I started
all right.
yesterday. Yesterday.
So everybody, please fill out the sprint report. It's important. I think what we'll do is maybe wait till next Monday to send it to Bill Whitney. Yeah.
Wait, also quick question is, are we also gonna have a keeper like in the semester? Like a person who's gonna be like
PR.
reminding everyone and like.
This week is me because it's the first week, so we are getting used to the process. But from week 2 onwards, it's gonna be between you two.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes no sense.
Unless you can convince or kindly suggest an associate that is good with sprint reports to help you with that.
Okay,
But that's your
got it.
politics.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and so my recommendation would be either flag me on Friday or to look at the sprint with the print report, say, hey, Dr. Bob,
I'm gonna do that. So I'll be
Some-
bothering them, say, do it. And then when they do it, I'll flag you, take a look at the sprint report.
because what I tend to do during the academic year is, when I don't receive this copy of the sprint report, I go in, I look at it, or get sent, or somebody sends it to me and I look and I was like, oh, these two people didn't put in anything in their hours. And then I send them an email immediately and say, oh, you need to log in your sprint report stuff and do this quickly. And then that seems to help.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very helpful.
So I guess what should happen is either on the weekend, if we decide, and I think we should decide like maybe Monday's the day it's due, it should be finished Friday, and Monday we send it to Bill Whitney.
So it gives us some.
So we
yeah.
get the weekend then to catch up on it, and but I need a reminder.
I will give you a reminder.
Yeah, say, hey, who hasn't done the sprint report?
Wait, so when do we usually send the sprint reports to like, how's the moment?
On Monday, I think would be fine, because it shows it from the whole previous week,
Yeah,
right? We
Monday
go
to
Monday
Monday,
through
yeah.
Friday, and that way gives some people if they
Time
want
to update. the
kind of,
weekend.
or they can sneak in a Saturday or Sunday hours or something if they need to.
So one example of the issues that are bound to come to the sprint report is just like this one. As I was working on the Riverine version of Watcher, IVR 1 green. This design issue came up. The transition video of the avatars kayaking downstream used to be a full screen video seen in desktop VR. How are we going to create an HVR environment that is appropriate and feels like we're kayaking down the river?
Put
Because
you in the kayak.
But then we have to like create a model of like everything, don't we?
so this is the question I put as an issue for the group to think about it. But there's also other types of issues. For example, me as a user, Unity is telling me that I haven't logged in my personal account, like my personal organization, and transfer all my projects to Plastic. And if I don't do that in 60 days, all my projects from my doctoral projects, they will be gone, because now I have been actually using only our lab organization. So this is all for all of us, like who has done TLT 460, for instance, advanced multimedia production. We worked with Unity and we didn't use the organization of the lab. We were using our own organization under our Lehigh email. So make sure that you visit your organization in Unity, open those projects to make sure the transition is made, otherwise you lose everything in 60 days. This was sent out this week.
Okay, so Jillian and Nasreen they've put their stuff in, they're keeping up.
Oh, look at that, great.
So that's good.
I started yesterday. But it's, yeah, let's forget about the sprint
Okay.
report now. It's not time for a sprint report, just a reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we're ready to just go under the hood.
Yeah, it's open, right?
Yeah. So, Jean, you should be able to follow along, right, in Unity, and
Project. So something that is
all right. So I guess I need, just give me a second. So I've got. Why does mine say untitled?
You have to click the scene.
Yeah.
What do you mean, Dr. Watt?
Well, I've got mine loaded, Lehigh Gap story.
Go to asset scenes and then click the scene one.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Not.
Oh, okay. This is a learnable moment.
Yeah,
Have you just downloaded this project from Plastic?
no, it's there. I just opened it up. I went to, I didn't have to download because,
Yeah.
there's no changes have been made.
So yeah, go back there, please. Maybe
Yeah,
click on project. It's what Jonah was saying. Click on project.
that's the problem.
Scenes,
Scenes, okay.
and then you click. Should we start in the main menu or just scene one?
I think we should go right to see the first, like, focus for now just on photospheres, I
Alright.
think.
Yeah, because we don't have a photo seat yet in the main menu. Alrighty, this is the game view. I'm gonna open the scene view to see things behind it. So look how crazy things are when we are using photospheres for desktop VR. This white line is a canvas space, the overlay canvas space, the size of this screen. So here it shows me what user interface elements I'm putting on this screen. But this game, because its environment is a 360 photo, like it has an open space, I also need to put 3D floating elements to be interacted with, just like this information site. How do we get to know whether we are positioning these elements in the correct place or not? Right. And this is going to be the answer. What I usually do is I split this window so I can have access to the game view and the scene view at the same time.
How did you do that again?
You just drag the tab down.
You click on the pad, you hold and you drag so you can move it whatever you want.
Oh, okay, got it.
So in scene one, there is an inconvenience, which is the tutorial. So I'm gonna be starting this under the hood session maybe in
Scene
scene
two.
3,
No, scene three.
because scene 2 also has an extra element, which is the rocks. Oh, no, let's go to scene 2.
Two.
Let's go out to scene 2. So where is the photo sphere? Sphere 7. There you go. So there are two ways of making photospheres. And we use the first one, which is using a sphere, like a native 3D sphere from Unity. And we put the photo, the 360 photo as the material for that photosphere, which we can see here. Sphere 7, mesh renderer, and the material is number 7. So in our materials folder, you will see that there is a specific material with the number of the scene. So 3, 7, 9, 11. These numbers, they represent the order of photos we took when we did this field trip. So this is the 7th photo we took from the beginning until the end. So this is just like, for us to know. What is important is once you create a new material, like clicking with the right button, create material. So the icon of the material is just like this circle with like happening and whatever, like this. When you are in a thumbnail mode, you can see the photo, but if you are in the list or details, you just see the mini icon. I just created a new material and Plastic is telling me that I added this, so that's this green thing. And there's even a tooltip saying like added. Can you see that? So what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna change this name of this material, pressing F2, or clicking with the right button and renaming it. So like test material. Oops, I'm sorry. Once you select a file in your project assets folder, it shows in the inspector all the components and variables that it has. For materials specifically, the first one is the shader. A shader, simply put, is an algorithm, like lots of code that makes something be rendered on a screen. So for example, an example of that, like if you have a project that is cartoony, you know, just like anime-like, and they have like outlines, the black outline in all characters, they can create a shader, a material, like an algorithm, to be applied to all the elements, 3D elements that we have in the project, to inherit, to have that characteristic. So sometimes, most of the times in a Unity project, we have the standard shaders. So if you want to do 3D work, it's going to be enough. For example, I'm going to create a 3D sphere just to reproduce the process of creating a photosphere. I'm going to hide our photosphere here real quick. Like this, zoom on the photosphere I created. So can you see that the light is being reflected on this top part, just like it's the moon, like the sun is here, so it's lit on the top part and the bottom part is shaded. So this effect happens because of the shader. So, and how does a shader behave? Like all these all these variables here, like rendering mode, opaque, transparent, cutout, albedo, smoothness, if it's metallic or not, all of these variables, they come from the shader file. In this project, I created a shader file because in the tutorial, I wanted to gray out everything that was in the photosphere. So I needed to have a photosphere shader, but was rendered in black and white. So I'm not a programmer. I went to Google and then I found the shader code. I copy and paste it here, saved. But this is the icon for a shader. It's an S with a colorful thing. What does it mean? When you create a shader and you are like dealing with a material for a 3D object, Unity prompts you, what kind of shader do you want to use? There are thousands, and that's important. Just like I told you, Unity usually gives you the standard one, but you can use other shaders. For example, just like this one, grayscale, it was one that I created, so it should be here like extra or something that was added, not standard. For example, here, Unity 3D tips, grayscale, transparent. So the folder is Unity 3D tips. This is the folder of the shader. If I click here, I can yet select a type of rendering, like how this 3D object is going to be shown. So,
Are you recording this?
yes.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Because I watched it.
So we got into this shader conversation. Why? Because all materials, they need to have a shader, and the shader that we choose tells us, do we need a light source for these colors to appear or not? So what I've done when I have been developing for desktop VR is I try to not use lighting, because lighting requires the computer power to process all the calculations for like, where is the ray of light coming? Is it going to reflect? La, 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 la. And if you stop to think a little, like here, brownie and everything else, this balloon is a 2D UI. 2D doesn't need to have light and shade because there is no depth perception. So what we do to make like the game lighter when we are doing a 3D slash actually 2D slash 3D game is turn off all the lights. The only light source that I have here, only in the scene, is for the anthracite, so that there is this shiny aspect. Because we have the light source on the top. No. Can you mute it, please? That's weird. Thanks. It's working already. Yay. So, no. Take a look there. Maybe if I speak like this. So how does this? Dr. Hammond, help Gloria because you suffered with me with this issue before. Does anyone have a headphone plug-in? That's a quick solution. Oh, okay.
Well, I think you have headphone, kind of like.
Yes. But we need to mute your audio and will that change anything? I'm sorry, Zoom. One thing we can do when this problem still persists is to not use the computer audio. So we use voice line. I don't want you to use the audio at all. Here, so we do not join audio, just the music, all right? So in this case of like hybrid 2D, 3D projects, if you put a 3D object, you need to consider some lighting. Like for instance, anthracite. The defining characteristic of anthracite, and even Brownie says, oh, what is that shiny rock over there? It needs to be shiny. Otherwise, it's not going to be an anthracite, it's going to be a normal fold. So we have a directional light here in this project. And as you have done with the Unity tutorials, the directional light in a Unity project is the sun. So it's almighty light coming from above. The only thing you can control in a directional light, if it's coming from above like noon, or if you're gonna be putting to the left to be like close to the plane, or to the right, or even if you want to fake a night stage, you can put the sun source below the ground. So the directional light is very powerful for like overall lighting. I'm just going to disable the light source, see what happens. So another thing that happens, and it's going to happen in both of our projects, the controllers. Okay, is there a controller here? Yes. So this is a 3D model in our VR games. And then as such, like as a 3D model, it needs a texture in a 3D material. But how this like opaque thing happens? Thanks to a shader that Oculus Meta created, and it's already applied, so we don't have to think about that. But for you to get this reflection of the buttons and here, this cool stuff, you will need to have a light source very close to the controller. Or if you can't do this, and I always try to do that, try to avoid using the light. How do we do that? Changing the shader, that algorithm, programmatic file. For example, here, in the anthracite, I'm going to select the anthracite block. So the anthracite rock is Unity, is using Unity standard shader. So we have, let's open the shader. So it's more or less smooth and metallic, so we can change here and there. And then you can see here on the top that this sphere kind of gets more opaque or more reflective. So this is where you get this 3D visual effects happening. You can even like make it chrome, like by bumping the metallic stuff all the way down and the smoothness all the way down. So it gets chromey, but that's not what we do. Most of the times we don't have to deal with all of these other variables unless we know what we are doing. What I usually do to like avoid using light source is choosing the shader that is called unlit. And in the unlit shader, they give us 4 options. There is a shader that doesn't need light. It's lit by itself, but it's going to prioritize the color of that 3D object. The texture is if you have like some pattern or whatever, like grainy floor or like just texture of this carpet, so you can use texture. There is also a non-lit shader that is transparent. So if you have a texture for a 3D object that you need to see through, you need to select a shader that is transparent. And something that we are using a lot in these projects, because we have those floating interactive icons, is this transparent cutout. What does that mean? We get a material from a 2D image, and then we have like, let's imagine this photo here. So this photo from the book, this is what we want to show floating in the air. But all of this here is transparent in the original photo. If you just put this photo to be used in a material that you created in Unity, this area here is going to be white, because the shader originally doesn't deal with transparency. So if you want to use this picture as the material for a 3D object, you have to go in the shader, change to whatever shader you choose. I'm saying unlit because I don't want to use lights. And then I go transparent cutout. What that will do, it will cut out the things that have color and are not transparent, but everything else that used to be transparent but rendered as white becomes transparent. Remember that you asked how, I don't know if it was you or you on the Under the Hood session on Tuesday, that we were pointing to the link and then we could point outside a little. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So that is a transparent area from the thing. And we use that in our favor sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I have a question.
yes.
So because for that sphere, we use 360 image as a material on the sphere.
Mhm.
Don't we look at this? We're actually inside the sphere.
That's an excellent question.
The sphere has to be transparent.
No, but thank you for bringing this question up, because that was actually the next step. So Dr. Penn made a question. We are inside the sphere, and these materials, they paint outside the sphere. And just for us to use the lingo, the skin of the 3D object is called mesh. And the mesh, like the cells or the collection of cells, is called normal. So the skin of a 3D object like has a normal map. For us to be able to see inside the sphere, we have to invert the normal map. And there is another script to do that I found online. So here on scripts, let's see where is that. I don't remember what that is, but there is a script called invert normals. Why is that? If we have an invert normal in a sphere, let's see, we're not even using a sphere here.
The material is from the moment.
The skin of the material is normal. So every 3D texture is made of many triangles together. So what they do with this script, they invert the triangle so that the face of the triangle becomes the back. So that's why we have somewhere over the rainbow this invert normal script, so that when we hit play, the code is red, and every 3D object that has that script, it inverts the normal, okay? And it's weird because just like we are navigating here, let me hide this examples here and show the other one. So here, from outside, we can see, right? I'm using a different system. We are using a different system here, not the one I'm talking about. But if we were inside, we wouldn't see anything because there would be only one skin. Why? Let's go to the next topic now. How is it being used here now? Look at the shader that this sphere has. Skybox Panoramic. This is one of the Unity standard selection of shaders. A skybox is that background that you see in Unity that has like a blue sky, a white horizon line, and gray floor. That is actually a material that Unity has natively for this skybox panoramic scenario. What the problem is, see if we choose the wrong thing. Sometimes the sphere is not stitched correctly. For example, here. This one is great, actually, by the way. But for example, in Watershed Explorers VR that we are doing now, we are currently in mode of the development, like we are developing, we are not doing polishment. So the sphere not only has a weird bottom and a weird top, but it also has a line, a gray line at some point of the photo. So we need to select at some point down the road the correct one for rendering. Something that is also not like helping us here because it's showing and rendering, it's because we are in WebGL in this project. Like it's a desktop project. We are not in a VR project, but I'm showing how we deal with photospheres. When we switch to a VR project, VR cameras have different ways to process images. So we have to play with the shaders until we find a shader that is good. So, but all of this conversation that I was saying summarizes to two topics. You can do photospheres in two ways. Using a sphere, putting a material with a 360 photo and inverting the normal, done. Or you can use the skybox technique. The skybox technique is not like this. I don't remember which one it is because this was done by another group of students. Let me show the other one. I want to hide this here. And I want to activate the skybox right there. So for us to have a control of the lighting and sun and whatever, we have to come to rendering, in window rendering, and lighting. So a new window will pop up. We usually dock it here. And then you can see that there is an environment tab. So this environment has no material. That's why what you see here in the scene view, it's a gray like ocean. But Unity by default uses this one over here. And you will remember that right now. And remember when we open new projects, but this is the standard Unity skybox, like to create an atmosphere. But look what happened to my anthracite. The skybox influences the lighting source of the project. So God forbid, lighting is not my area. And since I started in TLT 460, I've always tried to avoid it because you really have to have a knack, like a passion for dealing with reflections so that you deal with that. So my easy and peasy recommendation is try to create your projects without light as much as possible. And when you become a professional employee like Pixar, then you will have to learn that and use the light.
All right, so let me ask this question. Because the process we're going through for our students to work on this is we've got this WebGL version made, and we want to which is 2D, right?
Yeah.
And we're now taking whatever we have coded that's 2D, we now have to move it into a 3D environment. So when you make that transition, what needs to be done? I mean, I know we can click in the scene view, click that 2D to show it in 3D. Does it, because I know you and
that's extremely necessary all the time.
Yeah. So I know you and Junchen have been like testing out the photospheres and different things when we're trying to get it to work in the those. So, do you want to just comment on that?
Yes, we have just like Watershed Explorers has a startup for the VR production. We also have the Lehigh Story startup. But since we were in development mode, the photosphere has the cut. So the students, including myself, will need to find the optimal shader for putting the photosphere in the headset. Because in the computer, in desktop mode, we have the graphics card of the computer to process the shader. But the headset, although it's a very nice and beautiful thing, it's just like a smartphone device.
Yeah.
So the power of processing graphics of the headset is hugely different from a computer and much more from a VR game computer. So for now, both our Watershed Explorers VR project and the Lehigh Gap Story VR project that we have has a action item, which is improving the photosphere quality. We need to find what is the optimal decision for that. That's why I started here, because this is the same talk for either kind of project.
So it means our students are gonna have to mess with lighting.
No,
No.
the only thing about lighting is that if the students choose to go with the second route, what I'm showing, the skybox route. What is that route? When you create a material like I created here, the test material, I can change the shader from standard and I can select skybox here and panoramic. So now my shader can have a spherical HDR photo. Can you see here? So that's where we plug in the 360 photo to create a skybox panoramic view. And we can do this right now.
And I'm sorry. You talked a little too fast. I was trying to get a note on the to-do checklist about photosphere. So you said what we need to find is an optimal Richard,
Configuration for the photosphere rendering. And again, this is this one here, I consider to be the safest one, because when you create this material, it's already it's waiting for a 360 photo, and even in high definition. And these photos of ours, they are 8K. So we have this here. But this project was created by Capstones, right? I couldn't do things for them. So they chose the photosphere route because it was the tutorial that it pops up first in YouTube. So we needed to understand here, what is the difference between one and the other? There are affordances. For example, when you use the sphere, I'm just going to say that real quick. When you use the sphere, you can use this space here of the sphere to kind of guide you where you're going to be putting the camera, like where is the inside part of the sphere and stuff like that. Like the camera is inside this sphere. So that's it done. But if I was using, and we're going to be switching out to a skybox. If I'm using a skybox material that is a photosphere, I'm fine. Here, test material. That's the material we just created. Look, the environment snugly becomes 360 high definition, but you become blind on the scene view. You cannot see where things are, and you have even more to use these two scenes at the same time to see where you are positioning the objects, the 2D UI that is in the world space for you to be able to interact with them. In this one, the affordance is that there is no line, stitching line. Oh, inspector, that's right. If you go to the inspector, the material you created, test material, here I dragged the 360 photo high resolution we had. And then we have here, rotation. So if I need to adjust like the start seeing view, I just rotate the photosphere here. Okay? And I can rotate as much as I want. There's no line dividing that photosphere. So me, like junior, I did Watershed Explorers like this because I didn't have to deal with the hassle of the shaders, right? But I got used to using two screens at the same time to make sure that the illusion of the positioning of each object clicked, right? This is just the first layer. The second layer is in the computer, like this VR, desktop VR, it's a 2D/3D project. It's hybrid. What does that mean? The environment is 3D because it's a 360 photo. You are including some 3D objects, great. But the architecture is 2D. You still use a mouse on a Y and X space for you to interact. When you go to VR, the controller, can you give me the controller, please? Is going to be floating next to the source of the camera. And we have a ray coming out of this. And then when you do like this, yeah, I'm gonna click that. There is an illusion that the icon is there, but actually that icon is miles away to the back. So it's extremely important for us to understand these differences between using a 2D/3D project and a fully 3D project. And just like we are doing now in Watershed Explorers, and the associates might choose to do this with the High Def Story, a 3D/2D that you include some 2D elements to help you create some illusions. And that's for photosphere theory in 30 minutes.
All right, so I want to open it up for a couple questions for Jim, because I have one or two, and I maybe Gloria might make sure that you're like on this, that you're catching all this, and that I know this could be, because you're just learning Unity. I don't know how far you've gotten through your.
Don't worry, yeah,
But
it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
You will get here as well.
So I got a little, and this might just be me because I focus maybe on the wrong details here. But in the example that you used here, which was Photosphere 2, right? The trail?
Yes.
The trailhead. But then what you did was you put the test material in there, but that test material is
I put a different photosphere to be rendering that material, just as an example.
As an example,
yeah.
Right? Because all right, just wanted to make sure because that photosphere that you because that photosphere is actually, I think, photosphere 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to call your attention to that. So and anybody else watching this on the video is Junior just did this as an example, because the image doesn't go with that.
We can find like I don't know where that is, the photo. Again, like I am not used to the organization of the project because it was not me who developed that. I was just advising the capstones. But let's see.
Yeah, but it seems to me those are just, when you go to materials, those are the spheres, right? Those are
here. Okay, I found it. So
yeah, and so that's how they labeled those.
So the LGMC7. So for us, I'm still doing that skybox material pipeline. If I click in my project folder, that material, and I go to the inspector to see these variables, I can totally change this 364 for any 364 I need. And this is a process we usually do when we start duplicating the scenes to complete the game, right? So here, I'm going to change this photo for LGMC7, and we'll be in the correct scene, just like Dr. Bodzin was thinking about. But look, is this the first angle or view that we had in the original game? No. So we need to go to the rotation in the material and like rotate that material to make sure that brownie is where it's supposed to be. But I guess it's
it's pretty similar,
right? Yeah. So this is the game view. It's what the final rendering is like. There is a sphere here. I'm going to disable that because I was giving as an example. And I'm also going to disable sphere 7 because I'm not using a sphere anymore. So even though I'm disabling and enabling, nothing happens to the background, the 360 immersive background, because I'm not using a sphere as the environment anymore, right? One thing that you should realize, however, is that the anthracite is still shining like the Silver Surfer. This is the shader combination for the silver sulfur 3D model, but it's not for the anthracite. And why is that? We still have to think about lighting when we are using the skybox panorama material pipeline instead of the sphere pipeline. So we go back to the lighting. And then the first variable we changed was the test material, right here, skybox material. Instead of that Unity standard one, we got the high gap nature standard 7. Here. And beautiful. Then sun source, we have none. However, look at this second group here, environment lighting. And where is the source of this lighting coming? Skybox. So I don't want the skybox to influence my light. So I can put, like, for example, color, and it changes a little. So if you change the color, like, look how the reflection in the 3D objects change, right? So white is overkill. Sometimes gray helps a lot. Another thing, reflections. I don't want any reflection in my game, so I'm gonna put custom. And now I don't have any influence of the skybox on my original 3D objects that I imported in the project, right?
So I'm sorry, can you go back where you just, so you went to cube map?
Wait, where?
Because
Oh, no, here, source.
Source.
So there are some groups of variables, right? The first one is like, which material are you using? Do you have an external source of light that you want to have a role in this lighting equation? I don't. So real-time shadow color. I also hate shadows because it's extra processing power. So I don't even care with that. Then the environmental lighting is the second group of variables. What is the source of your environmental color? I'm sorry. It's usually skybox. So here it's fine because this skybox that we have, like, it's pretty natural. It has the sky as blue with some clouds, you know, so it's very natural for us. But I don't want any of that. I want to have total control on the light of the project. So I come and choose color. And when you change the ambient color, I usually use gray because it's safe. Take a look at this. Let's go see that here. Goes in the scene view. Here's rock over here. Right. If I put blue, the reflection on the 3D changes a lot. White, sometimes it's too bright. It's just like fake. So in order for us to get a more natural 3D reflection effect, gray is a nice way to start and safe way as well. So the final and most important element for this lighting situation is the reflections, because reflections also, for example, this is physics and I hate physics because I'm an English major. But for example, we have 4 lights here. And these lights are shooting rays of white light to us. But this is not the only component that is illuminating our environment. All the surfaces, they are reflecting the light as well, right? Or absorbing, just like black shades of our computers. So Unity loves putting the environment reflections in the overall equation of the lighting environment. So what I usually do in our 2D or hybrid projects, I rule out lighting and reflection as much as I can, because it's just like extra work. And it's been 6 years and nobody knew about this secret until today. Anyways, what we do here then is, instead of having a skybox as the source of reflections, I just put a custom thing and I do not put anything else. It's just like it's empty. So there's no material or color being used as the source of reflection lighting. And then we reclaim the control of the 3D object's original shader color that you have, the amount of reflection you want. Let's go back to the anthracite here, just to check that. Right, and I think there's a shenanigan that I did here, because during the process of development, in 2020, the second cohort, one model of one of the stones was lost. There was no plastic in the time. There was no, so it was too early. It was lost. And along with the model, their texture also was lost. So the solution we found not to like create time-consuming problems is we are using the same model for the anthracite for the normal coal. But the only difference that we have to discern the anthracite coal from a regular coal is the level of shininess. So it's the same shape, but here, this is anthracite and this is normal coal. And when you go to the game view, look, this is the normal coal and this is the anthracite. So it matches what the science says and the description of the anthracite. It's really shiny indeed. And we do have one over there, but that's old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And technically, there's sort of it's a little mistake, and we're just living with it in the fact that at the gap, the coal that you see on the trail is anthracite coal. The other coal that we're calling normal coal technically doesn't exist on the trail. It would be like bituminous, the type you see in the western part of our state. But again, this is a little error that we're just living with. It is what it is.
So this is very important for all of you and you online as well. When we are designing and developing a project, we are often tempted, oh, I need to do exactly like reality. But that's not the case. As education technologists, we need always to remember, like, what is the goal we want to achieve with this scene, these interactions? So we can start like, I call that the shenanigan techniques, to create an illusion or whatever. So what I was saying here, like, how did we do that? Just go to the anthracite thing, inspector. And then in the anthracite, I chose a different, how do we say that, shader. Instead of being standard only, I put, instead of being standard only, I put specular setup. Specular, like this is that. Specular means that those shining spots that reflects from a surface. So you can change, like here on this part below, if you want to enable specular highlights, look at the anthracite changing. Or if you want to enable reflections. So dealing with like this shader, we were able to like make believe that the left one is a real anthracite and the third one is a normal coal. But actually it's the same material, but is using a different shader. Okay.
I guess let's pause here and continue. Questions and are y'all with this, or are you overwhelmed? And be honest.
Being overwhelmed is the correct answer now.
All right.
I'm still overwhelmed by this. I hate this, but we have to
So it seems
do something, right?
Yeah, so it seems to me when you're in the photospheres with the lighting, you're recommending that as we're moving towards headset that we go through this process, right? Of
eliminating as much as we can, because that will make the project more optimal, like lighter to any computer to run, and it's less variables for us to take care of. Do you remember the first time Nazreen and Rob were testing the high gap story, and they said, "Oh, my computer was just like a rocket." It was because it was full of lights. Like the students, I didn't know that to advise them, and they didn't know either because it's so short time. So there was lots of lights, lots of shadows. And if your computer is not a powerful computer, your computer is going to be, and some smokes are going to come out. So it's our job as developers to have this in the back of our mind. How costly, like graphically speaking, and processing wise, is this project? So
Could you do like a graphic setting? I know, like,
you can.
yeah, like optional, keep the light on.
You can. That's a great question, by the way. Unity even has that in the build setup. You can configure levels of graphic. And then if you are playing in a computer that has more power, you can bump it up and all the settings will change to be very beautiful and
Yeah.
realistic. And if you are in a very, very like old laptop, just like mine, you bump it down, right?
Okay, yeah.
But then it takes extra time because this in itself is one job.
Right.
A person only does that, right, in real life.
Yeah.
So, and we had in Flood Adventures something that tapped on this skill that Jonah mentioned. In Flood Adventures, oh no, it's here, also here, yeah. It was using Flood Adventure and I translated to this one to optimize the high gap story. In the scene of the acid rain, let's take a look at that. Here. So in the scene of the acid, I'm even gonna put maximize. The first trees that the cohort put like it because it was extreme developing mode. It was a very punny, weird leaf, like it was weird. So when I saw that the second cohort in Flood Adventures had found this tree that is not very costly, I said, oh, I'm gonna just put it there. But it turns out that there is another settings that they had, which is the LOD. LOD stands for level of details. So the higher the LOD is, it's when it's closer to the camera, which means I just want the camera to highly process details closer to the camera. And the farthest way from the camera, like I'm doing this, everyone, the farthest way the object is from the camera, the level D, the LOD, the level of details drops. Look at this trick. This is a fake, terrible, but it's just like composing the environment,
Yeah.
right? We don't need to have a very powerful quality of leaves and shadows and everything here. So when we hit play, the computer has like, just like there is 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels, 4 levels of distance from the camera. So the computer only have to focus on 25% of to process here, and the other ones, they like, you know. So this is extremely used everywhere because of this idea of like, we need to keep in mind the diversity of devices that can run or not the game. Another thing that you can see here, what is the photosphere or skybox that the group chose? The original one, like they didn't even do anything related to skyboxes here. What they did, they created terrain that covered the gray area. The horizon is white, and as upwards you go, the darker blue it gets. It became beautiful, right? So this knowledge of like skyboxes and spheres and with the lighting, unfortunately, and shadows is important. Another thing you can see here, like there's no shadows from the trees. I removed the shadows because what is the final impact of a student's experience if they are reading what Brown is saying about the acid rain, whether it has a shadow or not? Likely very little. So when we hit play here, what is going to happen is the storm system, and like the trees they don't have any shadows at all. Anyway.
Is that why the grass is more flat too?
That's a very simple grass texture.
Yeah.
And why is this grass texture flat? Because in the shader, we can even visit that together to see, like, let's see, scene structure, terrain. Terrain. Materials. Another thing that I don't work with is terrain, but anyways, here.
I messed with
material.
terrain one.
Default terrain standard. So where is that? It's Unity. When we click the variables on the inspector, like I'm doing here now, Unity highlights where it comes from. So if something that you're clicking on the inspector, it's highlighting the assets folder, it means it's Unity native. It comes with Unity, you don't even know where it is. So let's go down and see the material. Wait. Oh, is that default material? The grassy texture, whatever is not here. Right. I don't know what it is. Again, terrain, another monster embedded in the Unity software. If you need to be a specialized person in creating terrains, you live here, only there, right? So that's not my case. I usually do 2D interfaces and no floor.
It's pretty cool. Terrain part. I messed with it once. I made like a whole like mountain, trees and stuff.
Yeah, the only time I used all this way. I also did this something like this for my 460 project.
Yeah.
That we needed to show like the native Unity things. And I use the terrain, but like, no, I don't.
It is kind of time.
It's a trade-off. The more things you add, the more variables you have to take care of. So it's crazy. So just to wrap up this lighting stuff, let's go back to our second scene. No, I don't think I saved that. I didn't save that. But I do have the prefab as material. And I can go to the lighting, environment, that's material. Remove the stars here and here. And I'm gonna hide this. And just to check if this is what is rendering, I'm gonna change it. Oh, I did it in the wrong place. Not in this sphere, it's in the lighting settings, test material. I'm gonna put a different skybox just to, yes. So this is the one we're using. Can you see in the background, like in the stone, that it's kind of white, exploded? So we can control for that. Let's see if this, no, something here. With the ambient color, just like I said. Is it ambient color? No. Or is it here in the test material? Here. So in the test material, there is this tint color. So this is a color you add to your 360 material if you want to light it up or make it darker. For example, here, look, I can do whatever I even like. If it's a nightmare, oh, danger, danger. Or I can make it very bright like the Sahara Desert, you know. So you need to remember that whenever you are dealing with that, try to use like different layers of the environment, like the sky, the trees, to see if something is feeling artificial or not, you know. There are other things that you can do as well, just like this exposure. It multiplies or deducts a little the rays that come from the skybox illumination. So, and again, just to think, I prefer this one because look at how many variables we have here. Few variables we can handle. The other ones, too much.
All right, so Junior, we got 7 minutes left, and before we finish up at 2:30 with the full group, I think we need to address something that we have in the planning document.
Mhm.
It's about the workflow and take a look at that and how we want to proceed. That one at the bottom, right? That was kind of what we were thinking
Mhm.
originally. So let's because what we want to do is we want to keep our associates moving forward on this project in some way, shape, or form. And our original thought was having one person, you know, so in this project, the Lehigh Gap story, there's this checklist. And then there's the narration, there's the UI, the game options.
There is also something here that would be the tutorial adaptation.
Yeah, tutorial adaptation, yeah. And what we thought we would be doing is maybe assigning these out tasks for everybody that are associates to work on. Either one person or to work in groups and collaboratively. I mean, whatever we think is going to work best with your schedules. And then the second piece was the photosphere, was kind of our original thought. The reason we brought the photospheres in today to talk about them was we felt it was important because Quan and Jonah also need to know all this stuff too. And we all need to know the benches. So it's good that we have this. So what do you think is the best way to move forward?
I just want to add something.
Yeah,
It just like Watershed Explorers Industrial History, the High Gap Story also has a VR version that was started. So we have Brownie, like a 3D fake Brownie positioned. We also have the controllers, we have some panels. So the most important aspects, they have been started in the one scene. So the workflow that we came to see that is more effective for this kind of projects that are very similar, like the structure, we develop everything that the game has from beginning to end in one scene. And once every mechanic is working, right, and responsive, we duplicate that scene and then we change the photosphere, we change the text, we change the character. It's much easier just to change the pieces than having to develop everything. So we always start in one scene, develop it all, and then we duplicate and change the template. Yeah. So there is, it's also in our, this is not the one because the name of this repository is the High Gap Story. So this is the PC version. And this was an attempt that Junchen and I had trying to go to VR here. But we also discussed this earlier today. We learned along the years that it's safer for us to have two repositories for different architectures. What does architecture mean? Like here, we are, it's even in the name, it's PC. So whether it's to work in a laptop, in a desktop computer, online in a browser, it's all the same architecture. It's computer, PC. But the architecture for a headset is Android. So everything changes, like coding wise and structure wise. That's why they call it architecture. So if we mix architectures here in the version control system, we end up risking like losing everything by a silly mistake. So we have the High Gap Story normal without anything for the computer architecture, but you can also go back here to this corner and you will find that there are some the High Gap Story VR. What is that? Here, VR, the High Gap Story, VR versions. All the projects that have been the acronym VR, it's because we have the Android and VR interactivity in mind, because things change drastically to get started. So what we would be doing, for instance, is to get here to this. We have a High Gap Story. So projects VR Gap Story. I'm gonna open this workspace here just to have in plastic. There's one new change. What? Well, when was that? Oh, it was June Chan. So this is June Chan's changes. But look, here on the top right corner, it's green. So it's likely that there's no major merge conflict. When there is a red alert here, we have to have this kind of meetings and think together, because whatever we do here we may lose work. So before I even touch this change set that he pushed, I'm going to open the original project like it was the state we left in this computer, which is VR, the High Gap Story. Oh, and this is for the Oculus Go because it's showing 18. So maybe this is not the project I want. VR version for Oculus Go. No. So I will find the correct project and let everybody know in the documentation or
Did y'all do something with the Quest?
Yes, I did. Remember I brought it for you to test.
That's right, I did, yeah, Quest, yeah.
So it's started as well. So going back to what Dr. Bodden was saying, it's nice that like everyone choose one topic for them to dive in and become like a master, or because you'll be doing similar types of moves, dealing with similar type of files, and sometimes similar type of scripts. If you work everywhere, it's so super overwhelming because you have to have different heads every time you change one front of work. Another thing, I'm sorry to overspeak. So remember that both in Watershed Explorers and the Gap Story, we are using the desktop version as a model. We open the desktop VR version, like the computer version, for us to see how everything was put together. And then we work on the VR version at the same time to see like, oh, what is missing here? And then we go to the other version and see, oh, that's how the students would develop this, would connect this button to the script. This is easier because they won't have, we won't have like to think about a solution because the game already works like from beginning to end, right? The only learning curve we have and the effort we need to make is to make this decision about the lighting, 3D, positioning of the raycast, and stuff like that. And now I'm done.
All right, so we're out of time in a minute. So what do we want to do to move forward from now till Monday for the associates?
All the associates must show their VR room and have plastic working and test their room in VR. Otherwise, if they go into the project without that practice, it's just like taking a trip to hell. They need to do that.
Okay, so well, so let's just kind of take stock here. Jen, how are you feeling?
I'm stuck at the Unity license.
Why?
I have questions.
All right,
I thought I entered it right. I'm not getting the.
so you're not operating plastic, that's what you're saying,
Yeah,
so you're
and I'm
still set up.
trying, it says I'm not, I don't have permissions for operation to
What is that? Unity or plastic?
plastic.
Okay, well, I can think about that while Dr. Bodzin asks the other students.
Zhang Yu, you're good with plastic, right? Yeah. So we're gonna
She's
support-
suffered enough.
Yeah. And Gloria hasn't started yet, so she needs to, you're still working on tutorials though, right? Okay, so you still need to keep going there. And then we have Jillian, who we don't know where she is because she can't attend today, so we'll have to wait till Monday. I think she's joining us Monday. So Zhang Yu, is there one of these on the mechanics that you'd want to tackle?
You get first dibs, whatever.
Oh, and I have a question before that. I'm sorry, Shane. Did all of you play the game in desktop?
Yeah.
Because you need to know what we are trying to offer, right? First.
Yeah.
Is there an intention of putting it on Chrome?
Chrome, unfortunately, is not supported, just like Macs. So it's not us, it's Unity.
Okay,
And that's sad because Chromebooks are using spoofs.
yeah, they're for school, that's what
Mm-hmm.
Chromebooks and MacBooks.
Yeah.
So
I have a lap.
our solution for that was to do in WebGL because it's browsers.
Browser, that
So
was
you can use
WebGL.
whatever
Right.
system and using a browser.
Oh, so when you go in the browser, it does work.
Yeah, the WebGL version, I mean, that's on the website for Lehigh Gap Story. So you just go to the website to play it through.
You know what? Because I did it at school
Yeah.
on my computer. It didn't even occur to me
Yeah,
that I did
yeah.
it on my.
Yeah,
browser.
yeah,
It
next-
works.
Yeah, I mean, what we're kind of hoping is by after the summer, we'll have
Yeah.
this thing working in the headset. So in the fall, we come over to
That'll be fun.
your school.
And I
the
did talk to
headset.
my superintendent and people asked them, put it up. Super.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's
So we're
great.
good.
Okay.
Sean, you and everybody else, you don't have to choose now. Just go to this document and put your name next to that when you, which one you'd like
All
to,
right.
to work. And that's for everybody online. I think it's Jillian working in this project.
Yeah, Julian too. Put your name.
Choose one and focus because
And
it's,
are there supposed to be meetings in the calendar? Events with the Zoom link? Is that what
for hours,
for this?
yes, it's already there.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mondays,
I'm not-
Mondays.
I don't, it's
So-
not showing up on my calendar. I don't.
This is a great question, by the way, because we always have to check that. First, you need to make sure that you are subscribed to the Lehigh River Immersive Learning Lab. How do we do that? Go to my calendar sites. Please in here. What is that?
Yes, at
What
Lehigh,
websites?
Lehigh River Immersive.
I have Lehigh River,
Yeah, so
but
don't
I
you don't,
don't have.
so do you see this where it says empty river check-in, empty river check-in on the calendar? Or you having that on your calendar? Because these are our 1 to 2:30 meetings every.
I have that.
Yeah, this
I
is
don't
an
have
old
that.
one. Yeah, this is an old one. We just continue. So we need to use this one
Oh, I
because
get that one, yeah.
you have to go to settings and you will add a calendar. And you subscribe to a calendar and you put the last email, which is in LU there. So once you subscribe, you add the Lehigh River Immersive Learning calendar, you get that access there. I'll help you here, but everybody else should do that as well.
Do you think it's possible for you to have this calendar send out a reminder email like 10 minutes before the meeting starts?
Yes. Well,
That's exciting on your.
You're in.
Yeah, we can set up
wait, what?
Like reminders?
like a reminder.
Yeah,
You control it.
Can you override as the user?
I mean, you can.
I like to put it into my own calendar and posting it, and I don't receive a reminder email from the calendar itself.
So what is the notification or? Wait, what?
Is there a URL? The calendar.
Oh, I see.
Yes, IN.
Because on my end,
LU.
Zhang Yu, I have it set, says 10 minutes before
Yeah.
as email 10 minutes, you know. So I think it's something that maybe you set up on your calendar, on your Google. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom, before you go, so
INLURIVOR at lehigh.edu.
Yeah, is that a calendar? No, so we are, wait,
I don't know, do you have any idea?
can you go back so I can go through the steps
I'm
again?
adding a calendar.
It's subscribe.
I mean, that's kind of my, feel like, I feel like we should stuck.
There, yeah.
Don't you have to get through these?
See, now we have here, and then you change the color, everything.
The color's fine.
Oh, yeah, Shanyu, it's. did
You want to
find-
add
I
notification?
got it right.
Yeah, thank you both. I also didn't.
I apologize for not checking my email often enough for 5/7 to see that it was yesterday. I'm so sorry. But today was the last day of school, so I'm done.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
So that summer break started.
Summer break started at noon. And I
So,
came,
go back now.
It's your only other.
There we go.
Either.
So I usually put the link, click here.
yeah.
Catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just didn't have the calendar and I didn't know where to find it.
Yeah, because this pink one is
Because
the
I
one from
even-
Mountain Top.
I've had that for a while and I even went back into my email to see if I missed an email. So here's what's happening when I go to, I don't have permissions for operation here.
All right.
In class.
Given that. John.
So I can't see anything. I can't open anything.
And then everybody else is just.
Is it?
It's working.
Oh,
Bye, Shanyu, thank you.
so what do I open?
It's really hard to connect.
Oh, your plastic is not up to date.
I wonder if it's.
Okay, so how do I update it?
There are so many ways and that's some bother. Click on these three buttons.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gloria, can I help you?
Yeah,
Almost.
I want to ask a few questions. I don't know, maybe it's because I couldn't finish my tutorial, like I'm kind of help my. I want to know, is it, are we going to do this like because we can have access to the
Yeah.
editor.
A lot of the
editor,
testing
like,
things that they're doing.
to
that
fall for the word,
They,
and what I'm
they figured
supposed to
this out
do.
already.
Exactly.
That was the homework you gave them.
That is right, if we use any of them.
Did you play the game yet?
Yes, I did.
So these questions are just for you to think about while you are playing the game.
Not ready.
Because when we just play games, we are just playing to have fun, to relax and stuff. But now that we switch to the, oh, I'm starting to learn how to make games, how to develop, we have to start thinking like, how did this like work? How did someone put this and this together to make it work? You know, so these are some questions to guide your thought process while you're playing. Because when you have this mindset of having this kind of questions, when you are in this kind of meetings like that we discuss about the problems and stuff, you are prepared, you know what we're talking about. It's not like you're floating, you know? So this is just a warm up.
And,
I want to update my workspace.
No,
All right.
it's the plastic,
I appreciate
plastic.
it.
plastic software, all
I'm
of
gonna
it.
go to the restroom for a break and then I guess pretty soon after we'll come back to the work session. right?
Okay,
Unless me, Jonah, Juan.
So I want to update plastic.
yes. And it needs to become light blue because it's not orange anymore. If it becomes light blue, you know that you are on the right way.
and this one, this, if we choose any of them, what would be expected from us? That's like.
Oh, so if you choose this, this is going to be the topic that you're going to be focusing throughout the summer. For example, I'm going to give you this example. Oh, let me finish the
We need to update plastic.
stop share. And I'll probably record.